Boy, we done it now. Welcome to Street Scores. It's your boy Rico bringing y'all the official 2019 Redskins Draft review. I'm going to give my overall grade at the end, and throughout this video, I'll break down each draft pick, even the 7th rounders, and some undrafted free agents. Weaknesses, strengths, projections, let's get it. Here's our 2019 crop of talent. Excellent job, Redskins. 6 offensive, 4 defensive, speed, high character guys, and needs filled. Now let's dive into each pick. Round 1, pick 15th overall, quarterback Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State. First of all, I love the pick now. At the time we took him, I was happy, but wasn't as ecstatic as I am now, mostly because I wanted Brian Burns, but we ended up getting the edge we needed anyway, who I'll talk about next. But back to Haskins. Positives. Big arm, biggest arm we've had in many years. Bigger than Kirk's and easily bigger than Alex's. Next, he's already good at a lot of the hardest parts of being a great quarterback. His pre-snap reads and judgment are already good, which is what made Peyton Manning so great. And he is also already good at reading the entire field. Lamar Jackson, for example, even in the NFL, only reads half of the field on any given play. Coaches don't trust him to read the entire field yet. And then there's a bunch of quarterbacks in the NFL that still stare down receivers instead of properly progressing through their reads. Dwayne Haskins sees the entire field and properly goes through his progressions. Also, he is very accurate with his short to intermediate throws, and he's fairly accurate with his deep ball. He puts some special touch on his deep passes at times, and puts a lot of touch on anything short to intermediate range, hits people in stride and all of that. And outside of football, I love his intangibles. He was clearly upset when he went so late in the draft, especially after Daniel Jones. So he will be a very motivated player, especially when we play the Giants twice a year. Also, I love his response to the question, and I'm paraphrasing, you have 2 tickets for each game. How will you spread them out to the people you care about in your hometown here in Maryland? This man said, I only get 2 tickets. I'll see the rest of y'all at home. I love it. Focused on football, mature answer. Also, where did this narrative of him not being able to run an NFL offense come from? I know for a fact he'll be just fine in Jay Gruden's offense. That is very similar to Ohio State's early on in the process. And with time, I expect him to master it. But by then, it may already be Kevin O'Connell's offense. I don't know. Who knows? Also, I like how he doesn't shy away from big moments, clutch plays, and big competition. And lastly, I like his mobility within the pocket and his ability to keep his eyes down the field while climbing the pocket and dodging defenders. Now the negatives. Almost every negative he has to his game comes from his lack of experience. He had only started 1 season in college football, even though his film and stats don't look like it. Besides his speed and mobility outside the pocket, which I don't really even want him to gain because then he'll put himself in more dangerous situations. But besides that, his other negatives are all based on his lack of experience and are all fixable with coaching and time. Can't guarantee that it will be fixed, but it's very possible. These negatives include him being a little more passive than I hope, his deep ball accuracy, his ability to make plays on the fly outside the pocket thrown on the run, and his awareness, decision making, and accuracy when under pressure. But again, this can all improve in his game with time and coaching. Projection. After really thinking about it and letting everything digest and really looking at his film, once he gets a little more aggressive, my comp for him is Phillip Rivers. Hopefully Jordan Reed can stay healthy enough to be his Antonio Gates, and I don't expect Haskins to start week 1. He may need some time, but I wouldn't be surprised if he beats out Case Keenum in training camp. I mean, him and Case Keenum are new to this offense. It's not like since Case Keenum is a veteran, he automatically knows Jay Gruden's offense. So Colt McCoy also has a chance too if he's healthy. He has the advantage of already knowing the offense and the players. But there has to be something to the Redskins bringing in one of Haskins' favorite targets from Ohio State, Scary Terry. His upside is also far higher than Case Keenum's, so they may just throw him into the wolves and let him get his licks and grow up fast. Also, Haskins proved people wrong in his first season of starting at Ohio State, leading the nation in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He can surprise people at the NFL level too. But one thing is for sure, he will be starting sometime this season after Case Keenum throws enough ducks. Round 1, pick 26 overall, edge rusher Montez Sweat out of Mississippi State. Still of the draft candidate number 1. I couldn't believe we traded back up into the first round to get this man. He was one of the top 3 edge rushers in this draft, but was the 6th one taken. Was supposed to go top 10, went 26. Crazy. Positives? He's an athletic freak. Like as rare gets when it comes to athleticism. At 6'6", 260 pounds and very long 35 and 3/4 inch arms, he ran a 4.41 40 time. Fastest 40 time from a defensive lineman since 2006. This is also faster than Odell, Zeke, Antonio Brown, Julio, Amari Cooper, Devin Hester, Darren Sproles, and RG3, a track guy. And he's bigger than all of them and much bigger than most of them. That's ridiculous in itself. Now to the football. Pass rushing wise, he was very productive in college. One of only 2 players in the FBS to have 10 or more sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. So, his athleticism translates to production. It's not just athleticism with no purpose. He has some technique and some counters. Can definitely be improved on, and Jim Tomsula will get him right and improve his game. But he definitely has a good basis of moves and technique to start out with. He also has a rare motor, plays at 110% effort and speed all down, every down. But he has the burst, speed, power, and length to beat blockers without great technique on occasion. Run stopping is his bread and butter too. Should find some more strength for the NFL level, but in college he was a great edge setter. His length also allows him to control the blocker in front of him and shed. It looks like that bully that has the hand on the forehead of the little kid and the kid can't reach the bully. Montez Sweat just needs to become more consistent with his hand placement, getting them in the middle of the blocker's chest so he can control them and shed when he needs to. But when he gets his hands on where they need to be, the blocker is at his mercy. He also does a good job of keeping his eyes up to see where the ball is, and if the runner is running his way, he is great at shedding and making the play. He can easily handle 2 gap responsibilities. His length also allows him to make tackles most people can't make. His tackle radius is insane. Also, he'll have better success at dropping in coverage than Ryan Kerrigan and Preston Smith ever did. His acceleration, speed, and length allows him to burst towards his coverage assignments and make plays. And lastly, and almost most importantly, the difference between him and who he's replacing, Preston Smith, is that his acceleration and speed will allow him to turn those Preston Smith pressures into Montez Sweat sacks and strips. Montez Sweat will be a finisher, not just a pressure maker. Now the negatives. He has great burst and ball get off, but he bursts straight up sometimes, which makes his burst pointless. He needs to stay low. This is a big reason why his bend is so inconsistent. He doesn't keep his pad level low all of the time. Jim Tomsula can easily get this right for him though. When he explodes off the ball and stays low, his bend can be great, and the blocker in front of him has no chance, but he is not even mildly consistent with this. Also, he has a lot of room to improve his moves, technique, and counters. His motor, tenacity, and athleticism bails him out quite a bit, but having a rush plan with some counter moves will make him unstoppable. He has a couple of very effective go-to moves like his violent and effective rip, but he needs to get more to make him less predictable and far harder to block. Also, as I previously mentioned, even though he is great at run stopping, improved strength and technique will make him even better and more consistent in setting the edge. And in coverage, he struggles to get his balance together to make an open field tackle. Projection. He will start game 1 easily. If Dwayne is the long-term project that we may have to wait for, Sweat is definitely the day 1 contributor who may even get a couple of sacks to open the season, especially with offensive lines focusing on the other front 7 monsters we had. He has a lower floor than the consensus best edge rusher in this draft, Nick Bosa, but he without a doubt has a higher ceiling than Nick Bosa. He has a higher ceiling than any edge rusher in this draft, honestly. His bend is the only thing keeping his ceiling from being infinite. And even though his bend isn't consistent, there's moments when he flashes great bend. But with his almost limitless ceiling, I can see a scenario where he is the best edge rusher out of this class by the end of everybody's rookie deals. And I see a lot of places on the internet that many people agree. He can grow to be one of the best players from this draft, period, regardless of position. And people only passed on this rare talent because of a fear of his misdiagnosed heart condition, but we already know he is perfectly fine and doesn't have to worry about it. Round 3, pick 76 overall, wide receiver Terry McLaurin out of Ohio State. Scary Terry. Dwayne Haskins gets one of his favorite targets from college to go with him to the NFL. Pretty underrated pick by the Redskins for so many reasons. Positives: fast. 2 straight picks spent on rare speed. 4.35 40 time. That's the speed necessary to take the top off the defense. It doesn't show up as much as his teammate Paris Campbell, who's considered a big burner, but he definitely has some of it in him. And with good size at 6 feet, 210 pounds. He also put up the 10th most bench reps out of all wide receivers at the combine with 18. That's strength. His broad jump of 125 inches was tied for the 9th most amongst wide receivers, which shows how explosive he is too. Very athletic guy. He takes his athleticism and adds some great nuanced route running, which makes him very hard to cover one-on-one. He can easily beat press man coverage with his great release, footwork, and hand usage. He also has the traits to bring some yak to the Redskins, but Ohio State didn't give him enough manufactured targets to truly show what he can do on film, but his traits scream that he should be a yak monster. Also, one of the most underrated traits for a wide receiver to have is finding open spaces for a scrambling quarterback. He has a knack for finding the holes within the defense for a quarterback to deliver the ball to while on the run. And then there's his blocking, which is a rare type of effective. He has the technique, strength, and passion to be the best blocking wide receiver on our team if he wants to. He takes his blocking very seriously. And what else he takes seriously? His special teams. Even if for some reason his role as a wide receiver isn't as impactful as it's projected to be, his special teams impact will be huge. And immediately. He is a great special teams gunner with a knack for downing the ball deep into opponents' territories. He has the ability to burst downfield and dive into the end zone to save the ball before it crosses the end zone so one of his teammates can down it within the 5-yard line. He is also an excellent open field tackler. He takes his special teams very seriously, like just as seriously as his receiving. And that's as rare gets when it comes to traits within a wide receiver, especially with a receiver with as much receiving talent as he has. And with his speed and quickness, he has some returning potential too. We'll have to wait and see about that one though. Negatives: he needs to become a more aggressive catcher. Go and snatch the ball out of the air. Don't wait for it to come to you. He snatches it with his body sometimes. He also doesn't do a great job of boxing out corners during contested catch situations. Contested catches are without a doubt his biggest weakness. Even though he isn't just terrible at it, he's more than competent, but it needs a lot of work. Also, even though he is a great route runner and has some speed and burst to him, his burst isn't elite. It's enough, but it isn't eye-popping. He mostly wins from technique more so than his actual explosiveness. And even though he has a very fast top speed, his athleticism isn't ideal. It takes him longer to get to that top speed than you would like. And to nitpick, I would like for him to gain a little bit more weight and muscle just to make sure he can be more effective in the middle of the field and be able to take those hits, because that's serious territory right there. Now, projection. My comp for him is Pierre Garçon with a little less attitude and aggression, but with even more passion for the game. And he's a little faster. Just needs to learn how to snatch the ball out of the air to truly be a Garçon clone, which gets me hyped. I loved Garçon, one of my favorite Redskins receivers of all time. And if we can get his receiving impact, along with some game-changing special teams contribution, all from one person, that's invaluable. And a huge steal in the 3rd round. I love this pick. The more I've watched this film and analyzed how he could help our team, the more I fell in love with this pick. His floor is a great special teams player, which is great in itself and can win games for us when you really think about it with that field position in game. But his ceiling as a receiver is what has me excited to see him get on that field. And then he's also already Dwayne Haskins' favorite target day one. He's the only receiver on this team that has any type of chemistry with him already. So he will have plenty of opportunities to prove to the Redskins coaching staff that he can be a dependable playmaker at the receiver position and not just special teams. Round 4, pick 112 overall, running back Bryce Love out of Stanford. This was easily the most surprising pick of this year's draft. We already have Darius Geis, Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson, and others. So I didn't walk into this draft thinking we would draft a running back, honestly, especially as high as the 4th round. But there's a reason the Redskins are taking a risk on a player who tore his ACL on the final college regular season game he'd even have to play in. He would have gone in the 1st round if he entered the 2018 draft. Tragic. Positives: very fast, like lightning, generational type of speed. When healthy in 2017, when he ran for over 2,000 yards and was a Heisman finalist, he showed legitimate 4.25 speed on tape. And he isn't just extremely fast vertically, he is also very laterally quick and shifty. Can change direction so easily and smooth. And then he has the breakaway speed to turn 5-yard gains into 80-yard touchdowns to the house. He can do that better than anybody who's come out of the draft in years. And along with all of that speed, explosiveness, and elusiveness, you also have a very smart running back with great vision and patience. He is also a good pass catcher. He doesn't have a lot of film to suggest it, but you can see it in his traits. He is great on first and second down, but with Geis being Geis, and AD still here playing well, Bryce Love can definitely become a deadly third down back, especially if we don't re-sign Chris Thompson in the future. But he also has great balance. Through traffic and people all over the place on the ground and in the way, he gracefully escapes. He also has better contact balance than you'd expect from somebody his size. He doesn't go down easily. He's not about to run people over, but bringing him down is hard, contrary to what his size might suggest. It's already hard enough to even get your hand on him with all of that speed and elusiveness, but he also refuses to go down when you finally do get a hand on him. And mentally, it's not enough I can say. He is a very, very smart, high-character guy. He has serious plans to eventually become a doctor, and I think he's studying stem cell research. There's a pretty deep story behind why he wants to become a doctor, and I'm not going to go through it here, but I'm saying all of this to say that his intelligence is beyond high, and his intelligence translates to the field with his vision and patience. He also has a large passion for playing the game and willingness to play through pain. And then lastly, I like how he keeps his feet moving while he patiently waits for blocks to develop, which is something that is so key for a running back to get down pat. Negatives. Will he ever become his 2017 self ever again? And if he can, how long will it take? And how long will he last? Can he avoid getting hurt again? This is easily his largest weakness and concern. Health. Also, his pass protection is pretty tragic. At 5'9", 200 pounds, he lacks the size and strength it takes to be a dependable pass blocker, and it shows on tape. But then again, Chris Thompson is an inch shorter and 6 pounds lighter, and he is still good at pass protection, so no excuses, Bryce. But again, his only true weakness to his game, other than his ability to run people over and pass protect well, is his health and dependability. That's it. Projection. I am excited about the potential of this 1-2 punch we have growing with Geis and Love. Geis was arguably the best running back drafted in 2018, and Love is without a doubt the most talented and explosive running back drafted in 2019. We have acquired a generational running back talent 2 years in a row for the cheap. They just both have health worries. Love more so than Geis. If, and it's a huge if, Bryce Love can stay healthy and return to his 2017 self, this will not only arguably be our best pick of the draft, but would also arguably be the biggest steal of the draft, period. When fully healthy, he's basically like a Chris Thompson that is also great on first and second downs. Even more elusive, even faster. It's crazy. But his floor can also be very low if he never puts together some healthy seasons. We'll see though. Round 4, pick 131 overall. Guard Wes Martin out of Indiana. Here is the Redskins finally addressing a big need. A reliable left guard to complete this potentially top 5 offensive line. The only thing holding back this run game is competent blocking tight ends and a true left guard talent. And we may have found one here. Positives. Very strong. Like, I can't even emphasize it enough. 38 bench reps, which would have been the second most amongst all combine participants, regardless of position, if he had participated in the combine drills and tests. So he is one of the strongest, if not the strongest 2019 draft prospect, and he looks like it too. He has a huge, broad upper body that looks right for the position. He has a very strong anchor, but that's if he's able to sink into it, which I'll talk about a little later. He has very accurate and strong punches, and he has a strong grip, so once he gets a hold of defensive linemen, he holds on to them and has them under his control. He also has quick eyes and IQ, and good patience. He quickly recognizes and reacts to stunts and twists. He also has the technique to slide his feet when protecting gaps and not just lunging out with his arms looking sloppy. That is very key, and it's very annoying when offensive linemen don't do this. Trust me. And he has good enough feet to adjust suddenly. And even though his traits sound far better suited for run blocking with his strong grip and difference-making strength, the stats show he can pass protect well. While blocking in the Big Ten against the likes of Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State, in over 1,400 snaps at guard, he only allowed 2 sacks in his last 2 seasons, which was easily the best amongst college guards, period. All of them. Sound familiar? Our dependable offensive lineman Chase Roulier was overlooked by the entire league and was drafted by the Redskins in the 6th round. Even though he had some very impressive numbers just like Wes Martin, they were both overlooked by the entire league even though they were very productive in college. So after taking a chance on Roulier and it panning out so well, I'm going to give the Redskins the benefit of the doubt on these late round offensive line prospects. Negatives. He doesn't burst out of his stance like he should. He has all of the strength in the world, but doesn't throw it at people at the snap of the ball like he should. He should attack people off the snap, but he doesn't. Once he gets them, he applies his strength, but I want him to attack with aggression right off the bat. But Bill Callahan, the best offensive line coach out here doing it, can easily fix this. Also, he relies on his brute strength a little too much. He doesn't use his technique and feet enough. He doesn't continuously move his feet to drive defenders backwards. He tends to just rely on his overwhelming upper body strength. I want him to learn how to get his lower half involved better and more often, which is also fixable. His feet are pretty heavy and stiff, just in general, with everything else he does. And his biggest problem is his reluctance to bending his knees as much as he should. This will help literally everything the left guard position requires. It will keep his pad level low and allow him to have better leverage, resulting in even more play strength than he already naturally has. Bending his knees would also improve his balance and mobility. This will be hard to fix, but it's not impossible. And if anybody can, it's Bill Callahan. And lastly, his lack of arm length causes him to struggle against long-armed defensive linemen that utilize their length against him. But bursting off the snap and keeping his knees bent with great leverage could counter this problem. Projection. Raw talent with a relatively low floor but a high ceiling. Has some rare natural strength and developed IQ and patience that's hard to come by in college offensive linemen. But he just needs to work on a few things to take his game to the next level. As of right now, I expect him to compete for the starting left guard position and very possibly win it. Now after that, I'm not exactly sure how good he will be right away, but again, his ceiling is high. He can be that dream left guard we've been looking for so long. And with the Redskins' recent track record of finding late round offensive lineman gems, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to developing him into a good enough to great starting left guard for us this year and years to come. And even though Sean Laval isn't as bad as people think, Wes Martin should easily be an upgrade, if not immediately, eventually. Round 5, pick 153 overall. Center guard Ross Pierschbacher out of Alabama. You start in the SEC, especially on Alabama in the trenches, you have to be some type of talented. That said, let's get to what he has going for him. Positives. He has a lot of experience with his 4 years of starting, so his football intelligence is definitely up to par. And his 4 years of starting also has his technique pretty refined as far as hand placement, balance, stance, and footwork. He has some good measurables with him being 6'4", 307 pounds, and he is also smooth in pulling and developing second level blocks. This offensive lineman has potential. Now negatives. Lack of strength and functional power. His leg drive is also weak, and with his lack of power, he also isn't good at winning the leverage battle with proper knee bending. But pretty much all of his problems come from his lack of strength. He doesn't usually push people backwards or out of the way in run blocking. He doesn't have a strong, dependable anchor in pass blocking. Maybe his lack of strength is fixable in the gym, but he definitely doesn't have the desirable natural strength to be an NFL offensive lineman. He and Jerron Christian are more than likely the weakest offensive linemen on our roster right now. Projection. Backup. He will be a solid backup with his experience, high IQ, and good technique. Actually, he'll be a pretty good backup. I wouldn't be upset with him coming into the game, but his lack of functional strength will present a lot of problems. So I hope we don't ever get to the point where this man has to start. But you never know. He may be able to compete for that starting left guard spot if he just goes crazy in the weight room and practices during this offseason. But I'm projecting him to be a backup this coming year and in the future. Definitely the least sexy pick of all of these picks to me. Relatively decent floor, but not much of a ceiling, which is a good pickup because every high ceiling, low floor prospect isn't going to work out. So it's smart for the Redskins to get somebody they know they can depend on to a certain extent. Round 5, pick 173 overall. Linebacker Cole Holcomb out of North Carolina. A solid pick for this late in the draft. Very solid pick. Speed. Making the Redskins faster continues. Also, it's nice to get some inside linebacker depth, with Reuben Foster being a mystery as far as health and off the field, Shondion Hamilton also being a question health-wise, Mason Foster being tragic in coverage, and Josh Harvey-Clemens being tragic in anything else but coverage. Positives: fast, speed, sideline to sideline range. He ran a 4.48 40 time at his pro day at 6'1", 231 pounds. That's pretty crazy speed. It sounds subpar to Montez Sweat's combination of size and speed, but everybody else does except for DK Metcalf. Also, Cole had an 11-foot broad jump, which shows that he can be explosive with some good acceleration. Both of these are better numbers than Luke Kuechly. He is also very loose and smooth, so he checks all of the physical boxes of being a great coverage linebacker. He is also pretty instinctive, high IQ with the ability to diagnose plays before they develop, which is one of the most important parts of good linebacker play, if not the most important part. Sean Lee is not athletic at all, slow, but his ability to know what's going on and what's going to happen before it happens makes him a Pro Bowl linebacker when he is healthy. Cole also has a knack for taking good angles to runners, and he has the talent of staying wide and being balanced and quick enough to make tackles on even the most elusive of runners. And this also goes for spying on very mobile quarterbacks. He has the instinct, speed, agility, tackle radius, and angle skills to be a very effective QB spy. He also has a knack for diagnosing and jumping on screen passes. Negatives: even though he is instinctive, he isn't as aggressive and decisive as you would hope. He prefers to sit at the linebacker level and wait for things to develop rather than attacking, contact, taking on blockers, mixing it up in the trenches, and making a play in traffic. And this is more than likely the result of his inability to stack and shed consistently. He doesn't take on blocks and get rid of them well. He gets swallowed up at times. I felt like Cowboys linebacker Leighton Vander Esch had the same problem coming out of college, but he got to the league and it just suddenly wasn't an issue. So you never know with Cole. But Cole just needs to be more aggressive mentally with his decision making and physically with his play in the trenches. Also, he can cover well with his athleticism, but his coverage instincts aren't where they need to be. He bails himself out with his range and athleticism, but at the NFL level, it may get exposed. Projection: I see him as a good depth player and immediate special teams contributor. A lot of his traits translates well into special teams coverage, especially his speed and great open field tackling. I see him making this roster and competing with Josh Harvey-Clemens for obvious passing down snaps, but Josh Harvey-Clemens' length is irreplaceable though. But at the same time, Cole is more reliable in run defense. Cole is a good 3-down backup linebacker, unlike Josh Harvey-Clemens, who can only be in on 3rd and long. And Cole has some potential to be really good if he can work on his decisiveness and aggression. Round 6, pick 206 overall, wide receiver Kelvin Harmon out of NC State. Potentially our biggest steal of the draft also. The Redskins have a lot of gems in this draft. A lot of players that were picked far later than they were supposed to. And Kelvin Harmon is undoubtedly one of them. People thought he would have gone in the 2nd round, and here's why. Positives, and there's a lot. His route running is insane. Can run every route on the route tree. Pays a lot of attention to detail. A lot of nuance to his route running. Very deceptive with his route running. Knows how to get corners to react and turn their bodies in certain ways and then attack in the opening. He also knows how to expose zone coverage very well, and everything he does it with a purpose, at full speed and with excellent footwork. He has some physical limitations for separating, but his route running gets the job done consistently, and his releases are excellent against press man coverage. Beautiful technique to get rid of pressers with violent hands, and quick footwork made pressing him at the line of scrimmage almost impossible for college corners. And even if he isn't open, he is a consistent contested catcher. That's his bread and butter. Even though he catches with his body most of the time, it seems to work consistently for some strange reason, and he has the occasional high point Randy Moss-like snag in traffic that gives me hope for him being able to catch aggressively, consistently in the future. And beyond just boxing out DBs and making catches with the DBs draped all on him, he can also make difficult back shoulder catches to the sideline where the ball is thrown out of his frame and he has to tap both feet in bounds. He excels at that. He makes bad throws look like good ones, which will help Dwayne Haskins a lot in the beginning as he learns to become more accurate with his deep balls and his riskier throws. Also, with Dwayne adjusting the throwing to smaller windows, Kelvin Harmon's elite ability to make contested catches in traffic with great boxing out, great body control, sticky hands, and control through contact will help Haskins out a lot with his aggressive throwing tendencies. Also, easily one of the best blocking wide receivers in the class. Strong and aggressive effort along with great technique, IQ, grip strength, and footwork to stay in between the runner and the defender. Watching this film was so funny. Watching him block DBs and seeing how helpless they looked before the whistle and how frustrated they were after the whistle. Arms flailing, helmets moving in frustration, stomping. Straight temper tantrums. It's hilarious. Y'all better go check it out. Oh, and lastly, he's 6'2", 221 pounds, yoked up. He's kind of not fair. And along with that size and strength, he plays like an angry bully. Fully energized and motivated for an entire 4 quarters, never showing any fatigue. He will sometimes beat DBs mentally and make them feel powerless and weak with his aggressive play and trash talking. He loves to get into people's heads. Negatives: not the fastest guy out here doing it. Ran a 4.6 40-yard dash, but he definitely plays faster than that on the field. He beats DBs down the field often, but still, he's not scary Terry speed if I have to nitpick. He's also not very explosive. He's explosive and quick enough, but it's not great. It doesn't stick out. You can tell he has enough burst, but also that his route running is the primary reason why he gets open. Also, like I mentioned earlier, even though him catching the ball with his body so much works well for him, I want him to catch aggressively and snag the ball out of the air more often. He's shown plenty of times that he's capable of it, but he doesn't do it consistently enough for me. And he's also not a big yak guy. His aggressive, nasty bully play style allows him to run people over and fight for extra yards that way, but don't expect him to go out there and start juking people out now. Projection: he has every trait he needs to become our number 1 receiver. His blocking will easily earn him more playing time than most rookies just because Jay Gruden loves it so much, and I do too. Our tight ends can't block, so our receivers have to, but as a receiver in the passing game, he has the tools to contribute day one. Route running, tenacity, bully type of attitude, that Garcon type of trash talking, get in your face hype after every catch type of demeanor is not only effective, but it's also infectious. He has everything mentally and emotionally to be an alpha dog number 1 receiver, and he also has the hands, route running, size, and release to become a dependable target for Dwayne Haskins. How he survived the 2nd round is beyond me, let alone how he slid to the 6th. I wouldn't be surprised if he became our number 1 receiver we've been waiting for so long, which is ridiculous value in the 6th round. This man only benched 2 less reps than 6th round, 6'4", 307-pound center Ross Pierschbacher that I was just talking about earlier. Round 7, pick 227 overall. Defensive back Jimmy Moreland out of James Madison. Very solid pick this late in the draft. These late picks are when you're supposed to look for guys with high ceilings and low floors, especially at positions where we already have starters and can use some more depth. I love this pick, and here's why. Positives: his man coverage skills are great within the means of his small 5'10", 179 pounds, 29 5/8 inch arm size. He's a very sticky coverage corner. He can stick with the fastest of receivers stride for stride with his sub 4.44 speed. Also, his zone coverage IQ was elite against his competition in the FCS. He has great instincts and anticipation, and he trusts himself, which allows him to play very aggressive and to take smart risks. He has the ability to read a quarterback's arm and eyes and has the physical tools to react to these reads and make plays. And speaking of physical tools, I mentioned just earlier that he is fast, running a 40 time of between 4.38 and a 4.44 at his pro day, but he is also very quick and explosive. His acceleration is elite. He also has very smooth and loose hips and feet. He can change direction as well as anybody out here doing it. With all of these tools, he can make breaks on balls than most corners can, like the vast majority of them. He can get anywhere very quickly, and with his IQ, anticipation, and instincts, it just isn't fair. Also, he is a true ball hawk. He knows how to read routes ran by receivers and then attacks the route exactly where and when he needs to be there so he can meet the ball before the receiver can. Also, he has soft, sticky hands with great hand-eye coordination. Even though I don't prefer it, he can make back shoulder catches. Like, there's a lot of our receivers out here that aren't even as good at it as he is. And what I love most about him is his toughness and attitude on the field. the biggest trash talker out of all of our draft picks, which automatically made me fall in love with this pick. He's getting into people's faces and talking endless trash after almost every play. Even with how small he is completely fearless against anybody. He usually backs up his trash talk too. He ain't just barking a lot, he's out here putting out production. And even when he may get beat, it doesn't turn him into any less of a dog. He's still out there trash talking as if it wasn't him that just took the L. I love it. He might be my favorite player in training camp. He's going to be extremely entertaining. I'm going to be rooting for him. I want to see him succeed so bad, especially since he's such a huge underdog, undersized and all of that. Negatives. He played in the FCC, so it's hard to evaluate him with his competition being so poor. He's also an underdog because he's so small. Pretty much everybody he's going to guard at the NFL level is going to be bigger than him. Length, size, and strength. These will all be big mismatches that speed and aggression will sometimes not be able to bail him out on. Also, with his small size, even though he is a very willing tackler and run supporter, he loses in the trenches at times due to his small stature. He's not dependable there. He isn't afraid of contact at all and is smart enough to know when something is impossible for him, but depending on him to make plays in the run game consistently is asking too much from a person his size. I'm bigger than this guy in both height and weight, and I have no plans of playing in the NFL at all. Projection. He is literally a quicker, smoother, faster, and more aggressive and trash-talking Danny Johnson. He has smoother and more fluid hips and feet, which allows him to mask his lack of size far better than Danny Johnson can. He is quicker with far better change of direction ability too. I actually have some pretty high hopes for Jimmy. He has some outside corner potential, but he'll be better off in the slot or as a permanent nickel corner. Or he can even try it at free safety with the current opening we have. We are definitely hiring with Monte Nicholson destined to hurt himself with his poor tackling, Troy Apke being fast and having no tackling skills nor the instincts, awareness, and quickness necessary to play free safety in the NFL. He's just fast. And DeShazer Everett, even though I like him, is just average and has an obvious ceiling with his physical limitations. And Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie can literally play in any DB spot, so I have no idea as of today where the Redskins plan on placing him. It might not be free safety. So let my boy Jimmy go out there and make some plays at free safety. He literally has everything you need to be a Pro Bowl free safety other than size. Crazy range, great speed, excellent man and zone coverage skills, smooth and fluid hips and feet, elite change of direction ability, explosive burst and ability to break on routes before the receiver does, elite instincts, awareness, the ability to read a quarterback's arm and eye, and the confidence in his eyes and instincts to take smart risks to make necessary plays. Literally everything but size. If we can magically give him 3 inches of height, 20 pounds of weight, and make him play in the SEC so he could have some film against elite competition, then he would have gone top 5 in the first round. Honestly, I love this kid's potential. I didn't realize how much I would love Brudman's game when we first drafted him, but now I know. This might be one of my favorite players in training camp. Round 7, pick 253 overall, and the last pick of the draft, edge rusher Jordan Brailford out of Oklahoma State. He's the last pick of the draft, but far from the last player we acquired. I'm going to get to the list of undrafted free agents right after this. But this is a prospect with a relatively high ceiling with a pretty low floor, which is what I want with these late round picks. Positives: he has above average burst and ball get off. When in obvious passing downs, he has enough burst to beat tackles who have poor technique. He plays with good pad level, keeping his body low to give himself good leverage. He plays with a lot of aggression and makes violent tackles. He is surprisingly mobile, which allows him to pursue plays from behind pretty well. And he can actually drop back in coverage some. He's fluid and aware when in coverage. Also, he plays fast. He just needs to find a method for his madness. He's quick enough to fake to the outside and beat tackles to the inside. And even though he is small for an edge rusher, he packs a punch stronger than expected and can hold his own against bigger tackles, which is the vast majority of them because he's so small. Negatives: lacks technique and strength. Doesn't have a rush plan and doesn't have effective counters either. He also lacks flexibility and bend. He cannot bend around a tackle to get to the quarterback. He is not great against the run at all either. He sometimes gets bullied around and moved out the way. Not all of the time, but enough to where it's a concern. And even though he also has some experience at off-ball linebacker, he is not effective on the ball or off the ball. Being a full-time rusher is stalled by his lack of technique, length, bend, and size, and being a full-time off-ball linebacker is stalled by his lack of experience and instinct. Also, his tackling is very inconsistent. So projection. He has some traits and potential versatility that give him a high ceiling, but he has a lot to work on and overcome before he can ever even get close to that potential. If he had to start tomorrow, we'd be in big trouble. But he definitely has some serious potential here, and I like these picks, not only because high potential players are more exciting, but also it lets me see how good our coaches are developing raw players. Let me see what kind of work y'all putting in. Show it in the development of this kid, who as of right now is just a rotational pass rusher. Now the undrafted free agents. The Redskins signed offensive tackle Jawan Bushell-Betty and Chidi Okiki, wide receiver Steven Sims Jr. and TJ Rahming, linebacker BJ Blunt, who's on the left of the screen, tight end Kano Dillon, safety JoJo McIntosh, who's on the right of the screen, and defensive lineman Ryan B. The most notable names out of this group are the two on the screen, linebacker BJ Blunt on the left and safety JoJo McIntosh on the right. BJ Blunt is a high motor, versatile linebacker. He has experience at outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and safety. He is a hard hitter who isn't afraid of any contact, and he has good speed to him, with the ability to play sideline to sideline. But his negatives include him being too small to play linebacker and too big for safety. He doesn't have any real pass rushing moves and doesn't have the size or strength to be offensive lineman consistently. And then there's safety JoJo McIntosh, who has great size and length for the safety position. He has good vision for the safety position and good closing burst to react to his reads. He also takes on blocks well and has the ability to get rid of blockers so he can make a play. And he plays very aggressively, but his negatives include inconsistent tackling, coverage, both zoned and man, and has limited agility and athleticism. But both JoJo and BJ can be early special teams contributors, and you never know, they may show out during the summer and get a chance to compete for some defensive roles. And that's all of the picks and undrafted free agents. I love our draft strategy here, and apparently the national media does too, crowning us the best drafter of 2019. Patient when necessary, Dwayne Haskins and Kelvin Harmon, and aggressive when necessary, Montez Sweat. Also, this draft screams high character, high effort, high passion, speed, and more speed. Also, I love how this looks like a Patriots draft. Most of the picks in this draft have one to a few traits that they are elite at. Montez Sweat's all-around athleticism and length, Terry McLaurin's speed and special teams potential, Bryce Love's almost everything but health, Wes Martin's strength, Cole Holcomb's speed, Kelvin Harmon's route running and attitude, and Jimmy Moreland's speed, IQ, quickness, and attitude. That's what the Patriots do. Get players that may have several weaknesses, but also have one to a few elite traits or things that they are really good at. And then they only ask for those players to do what they are really good at, rather than getting players that are below average to good at a lot of things and trying to get them to do everything. That's essentially just lazy coaching and scheming. So good job, Redskins, for finally taking a winner's formula. Also noteworthy, Jay Gruden wanted receivers who can block, and he got two of the best in the class. And we also got a few of the class's best special team contributors, if not the best in Terry McLaurin alone. The wide receiver competition and this defensive back competition is going to be insane during training camp. And it's even crazier that they will be matched up against each other. The two position groups I'm most excited about seeing competition-wise have to face each other. All of this speed, attitude, and tenacity versus all of this speed, attitude, and tenacity. I can already tell that this training camp is going to be filled with a lot of entertainment, heart, trash talking, controlled hostility, and again, speed and athleticism. After this draft, our team is undoubtedly more athletic, and I can't wait to see this turn into results and production. Our front seven will be filthy, top 5, if not the best, and this will make our defensive backs look great. And vice versa. Our upgraded defensive back group will make our front seven look even better than they already are. Also, our run game should be unstoppable behind a healthy version of this offensive line. Dwayne Haskins will surprise people and exceed expectations, and our running backs and wide receivers will make plays, making our offense far more dynamic than it's been as of late. So I'm excited. I give this draft an A-, so close to an A, or even maybe an A+. But even with Jordan Reed, Vernon Davis, and Jeremy Sprinkle, we still have a pretty ugly tight end situation that was not addressed in this draft. We picked up an undrafted free agent in Kano Dillon, but I'm not going to assume that he's the answer. We still don't have a tight end on the roster that can both block and contribute to the passing game well enough to not snitch on what the offense is doing. When Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis are in the game, we are more than likely passing the ball because when we run it, they are getting pushed back 2 yards into the running back's running lane, self-destructing their entire play. And when Jeremy Sprinkle is in the game, we are more than likely running the ball because he can't separate enough to be a dependable passing target. And defenses we face all know this. If I do, they do definitely, making our offense very predictable. So if our offense is still again this year, other than injuries, this will be the main culprit, the tight end group. I wish we would have gotten Isaac Nada and all of his potential before he was drafted in the last round of the draft. Even though I like Ross Pierschbacher, if we would have spent that pick on Isaac Nada, I would have had no choice but to give this draft an A+, without a doubt. But we can address tight end next year, and maybe even address safety in-house or bring in somebody like Trey Boston. Other than that, we're pretty ready to go out there and knock some heads off. But that's it for this episode of Redskins Report. Thanks for the view. I'm going to keep bringing y'all updates on the Redskins year round. I'm going to bring y'all my film sessions on every player we draft and maybe even some of the free agents as we get close to the regular season, one by one. And I'm also going to bring y'all some Redskins reports, some debate topics, and of course some more live streams. Make sure y'all get in them comments and let me know, how do y'all feel about the Redskins draft haul? What grade do you give them and why? And what's our biggest strengths and weaknesses as of today? And also, make sure y'all Dolomite Fake Punch that like button. Favorite subscribe, I'll subscribe back. Please subscribe if you haven't. Gonna keep bringing y'all endless Redskins content. And again, thank y'all for the support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.